Just a couple of quick things. Well, actually, I want to share this with you. I mentioned this. An email I got from, the title was from a conservative who's been mugged. And, of course, over on our website where my email address is, it says, if you send an email to me, I might read it on the air. I'm doing that here. I'm not going to identify this guy by name. I don't, I just don't do that, but generally. But I did Google his name, and I discovered that he had been contributing to the Michael Savage message board. He had been contributing to the Heritage Foundation message board. This is a guy who was, in 2009, 2 years ago, he was posting to these message boards as a conservative. So this is a real conservative. So let me read you this letter. Dear Tom, I stream your program from 3 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time from your Chicago affiliate. My purpose in emailing is to inform the progressive movement the reinforcements are pouring in from an unlikely direction, the political right. It's pure, sincere, and unconditional. Embrace it. He said some 30-plus years of commitment to a traditionally conservative ideology has very recently given way to my realization that the political movement, which gained my loyalty in the 1970s, has been hijacked by the forces of today's right. The one-word stimulus for that epiphany was Wisconsin. It represents the converse of the somewhat jocular, though racially tinged definition of a conservative who's a liberal who's been mugged. Well, Tom, it looks like Wisconsin was my mugging. I'm telling you this story because I deem it important. The devoted ideologues of either the left or the right welcome new allies from the other side by walking out to greet them in the center without trying to pull them all the way back into their camp. The side that does the better job of it will prevail. This is what, by the way, I've been saying this all along. It's like we need to be going to tea parties and saying, you guys are, let's hold up an anti-NAFTA sign. There's things we agree on. Anyhow, he says, back to Mike's letter, he says, what happened to me was simple. I'm a retired teacher at the New York City high schools who recalls Ronald Reagan's eloquent characterization of the teacher as America's finest when he announced in August of '84 that his goal was to put one on board the shuttle mission, Krista McAuliffe, be announced the next year. What I observe now is a crusade against my profession by Republican governors, senators, congressmen, and presidential wannabes, egged on by the angry voices of radio and poison pen writings of the internet and print media. They see nothing less than a glorious opportunity to move in for the kill on all of organized labor. The more liberal public employee unions, teachers, AFSCME, SEIU, etc., are just the beginning. It's a pity that the Tea Party, composed mostly of working folks, has emerged as a group of, in quotes, useful idiots in support of policies that will ultimately be their own undoing. Conservative power elites must be rolling on the floor with laughter over having these fools as their foot soldiers. That cadre of radio shock jocks, led by the likes of Limbaugh, Hannity, Crowley, Levin, Beck, and Gallagher, constantly decry the viciousness of the liberals. Good grief. Do they ever listen to themselves inflaming the public's ire against an educated, nonviolent minority? That is the 6 million people who teach our children. Do they know what history has taught the world about the perils of scapegoating minorities for a nation's economic woes? Do they care? So in 3 short weeks, from mid-February to early March of 2011, the right first lost my enthusiasm, then my assistance, and finally my vote. You can take this to the bank, Tom. If they lost me, they lost millions more. Keep hammering away at those forces of erosion against our democracy. All the best, Mike. And as I said, that's as far as I'm going to go in identifying him. Mike, thanks for the note. So articulate. And this is exactly what I've been saying on this program. Well, for 8 years now, is that the left and right, frankly, have far more in common than we have that separates us. We love this country. We want there to be a strong middle class. We want good education for our children. We want there to be health care available to everybody. We want a strong health care system. We want a strong national defense. We share very similar values. We want families to be strong. We have differences about how to accomplish those things, but we share those values. And the old right, my dad's right, the Republican Party of Eisenhower and of Nixon. Yes, Nixon, who started the Environmental Protection Agency and thought that was a fine thing that the top tax rate be 91%. That Republican Party is gone. The Republican Party that in 1956 in its national platform when Dwight Eisenhower was running for re-election as president and Richard Nixon as vice president, on their party platform said, we stand with the labor and the right to unionize, and in fact assert that unions need to be strengthened. Google it. You can look it up. 1956, Republican Party platform. It's right there. That Republican Party is gone. It has been replaced by a small, I'm lacking a word, a small group isn't, it's not our cadre or cults. Thank you, Jacob. That's the perfect word. By a small bunch of cult leaders like the Koch brothers and Dick Armey and these guys, and cult followers like Scott Walker and the Republicans and who basically are all worshiping millionaires and billionaires and transnational corporations and think it's just fine to give our jobs away to China because that helps the rich get richer. It's just fine that the average income of the top 20 hedge fund managers on Wall Street who don't make a damn thing is $2 billion a year, and they paid 15% income tax, who think it's just fine that Stephen Hemsley, the CEO of United Healthcare, and for 5 years' work makes over $400 million. They think that's, and is now running ads on TV. We're 70,000 people supporting 70 million Americans. Yeah, okay, 70 million. You get $1 from each, and that you got Stephen Hemsley's salary, I guess, and bonuses and stock options. And anyhow, what's happening though is that people on the right, people in the Tea Party, people who showed up for the Tea Party, people who know that there's something wrong, are starting to wake up and realize that what's something wrong is that Ronald Reagan was the toady for General Electric, and now it's gone. The Republican Party.